Live from Fargo and serving you on TV, online, and on the go. This is Valley News Live at 10.
We begin tonight with new information on that South Dakota meatpacking plant. We have learned that it kept bringing workers in even as dozens and then hundreds tested positive for COVID-19. Our national investigative team finds that the plant is now tied to more than a third of overall cases in the entire state of South Dakota. Here's Investigate TV's Lee Zurich with our COVID-19 tracker.
Our COVID-19 tracker map helps reveal hotspots across the country. The darker the color, the more positive per capita cases. The virus continues to spread in the Northeast and South, with counties of red stretching from Georgia to Louisiana. But in the middle of the country, the gray spots indicate counties with no confirmed cases. States like Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, Montana, and Minnesota have a relatively low number of cases. The outlier, South Dakota, which per capita has twice as many cases as neighboring states. In the last week, South Dakota had the largest increase of COVID-19 cases in the country, and 40% of the positive test results there come from employees of one meatpacking plant. Virginia-based Smithfield Foods feeds families in every state. Here's an example of how positive test results at its South Dakota plant have skyrocketed. On April 8th, more than 80 workers tested positive for COVID-19. 5 days later, that number grew to 350. Here's a look inside the facility. Undercover video from an employee. Through a translator, another employee described the unsafe conditions.
There's so many people around him, especially in the locker rooms where more people hang out. He could hear a lot of coughing around him. Both of his family members and him himself have gotten tested, and they're all three of them waiting results. He has stopped going to work, and he will not continue to go to work at this point.
Even before cases started popping up, the union representing workers says 1 month of requests for PPE were basically ignored. And while positive cases continued to rise, the union head says the plant offered a $500 bonus for employees to show up.
It appears to be a come in when you're sick bonus.
Employees tell us workers were given hairnets to use as face masks. Union leaders say plant management has forced the 3,700 employees to make an impossible decision.
They're torn between wanting to continue to work and collect a paycheck, but also, they don't want to put themselves or their family at risk just to put food on their table.
Smithfield Foods declined our team's request for an interview. The company did release a statement saying it stayed open to help the nation's meat supply, but it now plans to close until further notice. There's been a 9th COVID-19 related death in North Dakota. Governor Doug Burgum saying that the man was in his 80s from Morton County with underlying health conditions. Overall, there are now 331 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 13 are currently hospitalized. 127 people have recovered, meaning that there are now 196 active cases in the state. The state of Minnesota is reporting 29 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total reported to 1,650. The death toll remains at 70. 842 people no longer need to be in isolation and are listed as recovered. You see that Clay County has the darkest shade of blue in our area with 40 confirmed cases so far. Wilkin, Beltrami, and Ottertail also have higher totals ranging from 4 to 7 cases. As Americans start getting checks in the mail from the $2.2 trillion federal stimulus bill, the self-employed say they're feeling left out. That new bill allows the self-employed to receive unemployment benefits. But in Minnesota and North Dakota, the state unemployment offices tell us they're not giving payouts to that group yet. A small business owner from Detroit Lakes says she's been struggling applying online for unemployment.
They're still waiting for the guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor to be able to add us in, and they're looking at not being able to make any payments to us until the end of April. And that's a month and a half without an income.
Although the self-employed are not receiving payouts yet, both states are encouraging them to apply for unemployment benefits. They say that they're waiting for guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor on how to move forward. Fargo police want you to know about a high-risk sex offender now living in North Fargo. 36-year-old Denver Spotted Horse is living at 123 15th Street North. That's roughly 2 blocks east of the Great Plains Food Bank. Spotted Horse was convicted of criminal sexual conduct involving a 9-year-old girl. High-risk sex offenders are considered the most likely to recommit a crime. Some good news tonight as Moorhead police tell us that a missing runaway has been found. They say that Brittany Wilson was located, is safe, and has been returned home. No other details were released, but authorities did thank the public for your awareness and help. Police want to alert you about Medicare scams involving COVID-19. Authorities say scammers are using COVID-19 messages to scam people. Now, they might call to offer things like a COVID-19 kit, coronavirus package, or Medicare benefits related to the virus. But they'll ask you to verify personal information like your bank account, Social Security, or Medicare numbers. If you get a call from someone who says that they are a Medicare representative and they ask for this information, hang up and don't give out your information. Police are warning you tonight about something called an open warrant scam. The scammer claims to be a sergeant with Moorhead Police, stating that there's a warrant issued for you. Authorities say don't give any personal information to the caller. They say they are not reaching out to anyone seeking any personal information to clear up a warrant. Our heroes on the front lines of coronavirus, healthcare workers, are making big sacrifices as they fight to save lives. As reporter Elizabeth Vowell shows you, one Louisiana nurse even missed the birth of his own son. But then came an Easter surprise.
Weeks before COVID-19 reared its ugly head in Louisiana, James and Katie Bamber made a plan.
Our game plan was for him to, stay elsewhere so that our family would be protected.
James is an ICU nurse at Ochsner Medical Center in Baton Rouge. With 3 kids at home and Katie pregnant with number 4, he was ready to do anything to keep his family safe. So when infected patients came under his care, he moved out, staying with a sister who's also a healthcare worker. When was the last time you were in the same room with all of your family?
Let's see, March, the beginning of March, so the first week of March.
It's been difficult, on this end of it. Scared for him, scared for, I have my brother and my sister-in-law are also nurses, and they are also working on the front line, so worried for them, but incredibly proud.
When not at work, the Bambers do what they can to stay connected.
We talk multiple times a day. The kids will call him, FaceTime him. He's also been able to come out to the house a couple of times, and we get him on speakerphone, and he stands at the window, and the kids, they know the routine. As soon as his car hits the driveway, they grab their 3 little chairs, and they sit at the window so that they can see their daddy.
When it was time for the baby to arrive, James and Katie had a plan for that too.
The plan was for me to not go into the delivery room. I did not want to expose my unborn child or my wife or the labor and delivery staff. It was tough.
Katie gave birth at Ochsner, surrounded by the labor and delivery staff, instead of her husband.
The plan was for me to stay here at my sister's house, but, of course, I panicked. I had to be as close as possible to her, so I threw some clothes on, drove to the hospital, and sat in the parking lot, just waiting to get updates.
When it got time for him to come on out, it was like somebody had FaceTime going, somebody had video going, somebody was taking pictures. James was right up in the mix, kind of, via FaceTime.
The staff captured every moment for James, even the first time he laid eyes on his son from afar.
That was the most emotional part for me, I feel like. I can't imagine, I can't imagine, as a mom, when this baby is born, he came to my chest. So I got to immediately touch him and smell him and hold him. And I can't imagine for James, what that was like.
It was kind of like the Lion King almost, is what I thought of at first. But it was great. Just so much relief, so much happiness that everything had gone well.
Both healthy, mom and baby got to go home. But James would have to wait a little longer. Only seeing his newest son through the window outside the home he can't enter until his self-isolation is done.
Tearing up right now just thinking about it.
It's a moment the Bambers have been planning for since the beginning of all of this.
Excited and anxious to get my hands on him. It's been, it'll be close to a month by the time he comes home that we've been able to, be close to him. So they're ready to get their hands on their daddy.
A moment that finally arrived Easter Sunday. James will get a little more than a week at home before heading back to work and back into quarantine. He says the need is just too great right now. And that's a plan his family says they're ready for.
A small sacrifice compared to what the patients and family members dealing with this virus are having to go through.
Look at this one. I mean, he's my twin.
That was a great story. That was Elizabeth Vowell reporting.